I did want to talk about Marcus Sasser. Now, obviously, he did not
Yeah.
have the best game last night, but the two games against the Pelicans and the Spurs, I thought were some of his best games of the season. So I wanted to ask you, like, do you think he deserves a bigger role? Just kind of obviously he's out of the rotation. He's in a really weird spot. You got Tim, you got Malik, even Jaden Ivey when he was healthy this season. Like, you think there's room for a Marcus Sasser with the playoffs coming up?
It's kind of tough. I mean, if Cade is healthy, you bring in Dennis Schroeder for a reason. You didn't just bring him in to, kind of suffice for the rest of the regular season. Those are the kind of names you bring in to have, the right depth going against winning teams like Milwaukee, New York. Those are the kind of teams where you need a guy like Schroeder in the back. You saw the kind of game he had too, had a double-double. Like he's really taken some strong steps forward. But back to Sasser, I really love what he's done. Yeah, those games against the Spurs and against the Pelicans, where he's been in and out of the lineup. Even going back to the start of the season, where we asked him a lot about growing and developing as a pass first point guard and adjusting to that role. It was very clear that it took him a while to really get comfortable with doing that. So, um, to answer your question directly, I don't know what the role would be for him if your guys are healthy at the moment. Like obviously now it makes sense obviously to play him 20 plus minutes, but I don't know. I think it would be a little tough, especially if he's not on the heater like we saw in those two games. Like if he's missing and if he's cold, if he's not playmaking, it's kind of gonna be tough to find ways to fit him in. I do like when he's staggered in with Dennis Schroeder, where he's the two guard, where he doesn't
Mhm.
have to take the responsibility on of being, the table setter to get guys in their spots. When he can just come in and shoot and play free, like that's when he's dangerous. His handle is very underrated. He does an unbelievable job of creating space, especially with that step back three. But I don't know. Yeah, with playoff time, like JB kind of talked about a lot of this. He said, like, listen, Sass has been in an up and down scenario, but he's been a great professional with dealing with it all and preparing for it as well. Because like we talked about all of this throughout the season. And if you kind of get, shocked in the moment or after the fact, that means I didn't do my job in preparing you guys for these kind of scenarios. So I think JB's done a good job of that. Sass has done a good job of responding, but playoffs is playoffs. It's a different animal, and you want your heavy hitters out there. You don't really have a lot of time to tinker with different things. You kind of got to have formulas and lineups set. And I think it might be a little tough trying to find some room for Sass if these guys are playing as well and if they're healthy.
Yeah, I think his situation is it's tricky for a coach like JB. But I will say, like, there have been times this season where maybe Tim's just not having like a night where he's shooting the ball. Like
Right.
last night, it's like that's Tim Hardaway at its peak,
Yeah.
like a flamethrower from three. Like when he's that hot, it feels like he's not going to miss. But there are nights where he only has maybe like 8 to 10 points, and he's
Hmm.
just not feeling it. But I
Yeah.
will say, Alan brings up a good point with Sasser. He said Sasser was still able to contribute defensively since he matched up with smaller guards. He could stay in front of Garland and Mitchell and help earn the star. He also kind of took the challenge a couple of times when he was being switched on DeAndre Hunter. They had to actually do a
Hmm.
coach's challenge. Like, I think defensively, sometimes people don't really think of a Marcus Sasser right away. They think of
Right.
like an Asar or a Ron, but I think for his size, only being around like 6'1", 6'2", he does a really good job of just fighting over the top of screens, and defensively, I think he's a little bit underrated in that aspect. But I can understand like maybe you don't really know where to play him, but playing him off ball, I think is a strength. So maybe if Tim's not really feeling it that night, maybe you kind of get desperate and say like we need some offense. Maybe Sasser has it tonight. Maybe you can find him a good 5 to 10 minutes a night. I don't know. I'm not a coach. That's just kind of like my opinion overall, but like he's still talented. Don't get me wrong. He's still on a rookie deal. I'm sure the Pistons front office still values him as a player because like a player like that in the open market and free agency, you're not getting them for like what the Pistons are currently paying him on a rookie deal. Like I bet you if Sasser, and I've had this opinion, this take in the chamber, and people might call me crazy, but if Sasser was in Boston, he would basically probably play the Peyton Pritchard role and thrive in it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. And I like the defensive comparison that you have, because even if he's not, a lockdown guy on the ball, like if you see guys like Ivy, I kind of look at it the same way. Even if he's not, able to stay in front of his guy, for each stretch of possession, but if you can play passing lanes and get your hand on a couple deflections and help create that transition offense that JB loves to play, that can change a whole tide of a game. I actually asked him about that after the Pelicans game, because we've seen that. Like, I asked him, like, what does it mean for you as a reserve, whether it's you or it's Ron or Bees when he's red hot, your ability to change the tide of a game in just 5 minutes or a couple possessions. He's like, yo, that's our job. We're the guys that want to come bring the energy. We see when the guys aren't feeling it or when things aren't going how we want it to go. We look at each other and say, okay, it's time to get going. And for the past several games, they've been the ones to lean on. I mean, even in the Cavs game, like Asar and Holland, like Ron had the transition dunk. He played some good defense. Same way, played in good passing lanes. That goes to the great coaching that JB has done this season. And again, even if these guys aren't locked down, we see the buy-in from top down of everybody wanting to play, Detroit Piston defensive basketball, which has been the staple of their identity. So I do think that could be a place where he, like you said, maybe gets 5-10 minutes in a spot if they need it. And JB has also shown that he's not scared of trying that kind of stuff too. So again, it's a tough scenario, but I could see where you're coming from, where maybe they just need some juice, and these are the guys that can get it rolling so the other guys can get popping too.
Yeah, that first Milwaukee game where he came in and he was just hitting shot after shot after shot because Tim didn't have it that game. Obviously,
Yep.
I think that was the game where Ryan gets fouled and we don't make the free throws and they win in overtime. But like, I think those are situations where the coaching staff will look at, like, maybe what Betts is not hitting the shots or injuries happen. We know that. Hopefully, no more injuries happen.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think did want to touch on him for a little bit because like I looked at his like 2-game split. So it was like 70% from the field, 70 from three, and like a 92% true shooting percentage. Like he was just on some video game type shit. It was like wild. And of course I put that out and he kind of had a stinker going 1 for 9 last night. But hey, it's my fault. It's my fault, guys. If you want to point blame, I was buying into the Sasser 6-man hype a little bit, but I still really like him as a player, man. It's just I think if he had more of a consistent role playing off ball, he would cook.